Well, well, well. You've gone and brought back Q, and all I can ask is why. This was episode 8 of Lower Decks, called just simply Veritas, which I think means truth in foreign. And this episode, it's a big fat 5. Just gonna get it out of the gate quick. We're going downhill with these episodes. I was looking forward to Lower Decks every week. Now I'm looking not forward, I'm looking backward. Sorry to say it, we only got like 2 more episodes left in the season. Is this a 10 episode season? Is this a tenner? If it is, it's going to be hard to save this, but highest mark I think this series achieved so far is a 7.5, and we haven't been close to that in the last 3 episodes, so what can you do? So let's just get right into the summary, shall we? This episode has an intro sequence that relates directly to the plot and isn't funny at all. This was probably the worst pre-intro sequence in the whole series so far. So our main cast members are seemingly put on trial, and they're risen up on a shadowy platform into a vast dark chamber surrounded by unknown aliens. And they're put on trial for seemingly no reason to us as the viewer. However, they're on trial to I don't know. I don't understand this episode. I can't figure out how to describe it. This episode is wacky and nonsensical, and not in a great way. They're on trial over something the bridge crew did, okay? And they don't know what it is. So as the trial goes on, their testimonies diverge vastly from what actually happened, okay? So they're each giving a testimony as to the character of the bridge crew, the Cerritos itself, and what happened on specific stardates indicated by the alien whom is putting them on trial. So Rutherford, Tendi, Mariner, and Boimler all give their recollection of the events. And this is just a tool to deliver comedy. All this is a vehicle for the writers to deliver the gags they wanted. This episode, I'm sure, was just a collection of gags they wanted to force onto the screen, and had to come up with whatever hackneyed excuse they could to get it on there. That being said, there was a few laughs in this episode. I thought this episode was actually pretty funny, but that didn't save it. The event in question that they're asked to testify on has something to do with a map, something to do with the neutral zone, something to do with Romulans, and something to do with various cameo appearances from canon ships. Refreshingly, Tendi has something to do in this episode, as her testimony is the most interesting, and possibly the most funny. This all culminates in Boimler delivering a Starfleet speech that, while it humbles the bridge crew and brings them back down to Earth, it also speaks to Starfleet values, so it's getting a plus. Like the last episode with The Farm, this episode also has a fake-out ending, where it turns out that the trial they were on is actually some type of congratulatory party, which makes little sense to me. I mean, it's very contrived, and I feel like I've seen it many times before, but to me it just didn't work this time. Q makes an appearance at the very end of this episode, and I can't believe they dragged John Delancey out for this garbage. They dragged him out of his coffin to slap him back on the screen for a few lines in Lower Decks. Come on, guys. All in all, this episode had a few good laughs for me, but it was comedy hung on a hollow skeleton of a derivative plot that was contrived and a little bit cringy, and that's sad. This is possibly the worst episode of this series, or it is perhaps at least on par with the first one, which is why it's getting a 5, which is unfortunate. It's sad to see the name drops and member berries continue this late into the series. We're on episode 8. Of all shows that have aired since the launch of Star Trek Discovery, this is the show that needs to prove itself the least. This is the one that feels the most like Star Trek already. Why does it feel the need to prove itself to the audience constantly with tons of universe-breaking name drops. I mean, my suspense of disbelief is gone. Why do these characters seem to have watched Star Trek The Next Generation? Like, it feels like Star Trek itself is popular in Star Trek Lower Decks. Are they going to resolve this at the very end by revealing that it actually does take place in a universe where people have watched Star Trek? I don't know. It's a comedy. They could go any direction. You know, at the expense of everything, this episode was funny. But good comedy shows have heart. And this episode did not have a heart. I'm sorry. It's a little bit late in this season to save it, this being episode 8. But there's always season 2. Perhaps in season 2 they'll get rid of the cursing and get rid of the name drops. And then it could actually be a good show. It could be the best Star Trek show since the cancellation of Enterprise, I must say. Khan is name dropped in this episode, as well as being referred to as a space seed, which I believe was the name of the episode Khan was introduced in. Come on, guys. Come on. Come on. Picard, it felt like Picard was name dropped in this episode 1,000 times. Is this episode an ad for Star Trek Picard Season 2? Okay, we could do a spotter's guide to this episode in terms of how many starships were seen. We had a classic Romulan bird of prey. I think we had a Klingon Katinga. I think we had a Vulcan warp sled. I think I saw the Toplana Hath from First Contact. We seen a Ferengi ship. I believe it's called a Marauder. I'm not sure. And I'm sure the list goes on if you look harder. But it's interesting to me that with all these canon ships, and me being a ship guy, I still thought this episode sucked. I guess good Star Trek doesn't have to necessarily scream Star Trek at you for it to be good Star Trek. Imagine that. During Tendy's testimonial, which I already mentioned was the funniest for me, it is mentioned that somebody needs to clean the cat hair off the chairs in the conference room. Did those hairs come from Dr. T'Ana? If so, that would be kind of funny, and raises a question that I never thought before. Perhaps some characters in Star Trek leave behind hair. Makes you think. A character on a ship talking to Tendy and saying, "Oh, they're scanning us." Oh, wait, no, they're not. Oh, they're scanning. Oh, wait, no, they're not. Scanning. No. Just the start and stop of it, it was quite interesting to me. Sorry, guys. This is a 5 out of 10. Better luck next time. Lieutenant Markout, I'm needed back on the bridge of the Dingwall, which is where I am right now. So long.